If you're a maintenance supervisor at a manufacturing facility and your machinery isn't working right, Grainger knows you need to understand what's wrong as soon as possible. So when a conveyor motor falters, Grainger offers diagnostic tools like calibration kits and multimeters to help you identify and fix the problem. With Grainger, you can be confident you have everything you need to keep your facility running smoothly. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Hey, this is Jason Kleberg from the Force 5 podcast, a show that forces a guest to come up with a movie-themed top 5 list topic, and then we reveal our picks on air. Top 5 heist films, top 5 tearjerkers, top 5 movie dogs. Every show you'll be asking yourself, what would be on my list? Guests include directors, screenwriters, actors, podcasters, musicians, authors, and even a professional wrestler. Subscribe to the Force 5 podcast, and you won't just be a listener, you'll be a list nerd. The Force 5 podcast, available wherever you're listening now.
And welcome to the Kulturecast. I'm Chris Stachiw. I am joined today by my guest co-host, none other than the guitarist for Wovoka, and good friend of mine all the way from the City of Angels, the city that Randy Newman said he loves oh so much, L.A., Mr. Eric Kniss.
Well, now that I know that Randy Newman is all into this shit, I gotta bounce.
I love L.A. Yeah, it's a classic right there.
He hates short people and loves LA, so.
Short people got no reason to live. Yep.
You think that, like, one day, like, little people are just going to take it back, and that's going to be, like, their anthem?
I don't know. I don't know. That song is such a weird song.
I think Randy Newman is just on acid.
I think Randy Newman's a weird guy just in general. There's another song that's, like, where he's talking about, like, it's almost like the Donald Trump anthem where he's talking about how we should just, like, bomb everybody into the ground, and how we should just drop nukes on everybody. I'm trying to remember what the name of it is. It's pretty crazy. But he's like,
I need to find it.
Oh, what is it? Oh, God damn it. I'll have to tell you after the podcast. If I remember, I'll let you know. But it's a pretty insane song. So, but Randy Newman aside, we're going to be talking about Zodiac from 2007. I'm going to be extremely biased in this podcast because it is one of my favorite films, definitely in one of my top 5. We also have an interview with Paul Schulze and John Lacy, who are both in the film. But before we talk Zodiac, let's talk a little bit about the stream place and some suggestions. Just one, because I think we're going to have a lot to talk about with Zodiac. Some suggestions from you, Mr. Kniss, about what people should be checking out on Netflix right now.
You know what? Remember, like, this was like, I don't know, maybe a month or two ago when I was shitting on Shudder.
Yep. We had a pretty, I'm trying to remember what podcast that was where you and I had a pretty long, drawn-out conversation. I think that was the Videodrome podcast where we had a pretty long, drawn-out conversation about how Shudder is not good.
Yeah. So I never got around to deleting my Shudder account, so I've been using it.
You've been charged for the last 3 months.
So I've been charged, so I've been like, fuck it, I'm going to fucking watch this shit. And I don't know if they, like, worked out some of the kinks in their, like, platform or whatever, but it seems to be working a little bit better. It's still not the easiest thing to navigate. At least not on the Apple TV, which is my primary source for streaming.
Well, to be fair, I think the Apple TV is the best of any. I mean, if you're doing stuff on your computer to put it on your TV, it's the best for sure.
Yeah, or if you're just like, I just use it just for the interface. Like, I don't use my computer for streaming or anything like that. So, but they have this, like, mini series. It's like a 3-episode thing called, like, Beyond the Walls. It's a French mini series, I want to say, or it's by, like, a French director. It's like 3 episodes, and they're about 45 minutes, an hour long each. And I watched the first one last night, and it's really good. Really interesting, sort of like Lovecraftian.
And is that original content for them?
Yeah, it's a Shudder exclusive. So
see, and that as far as I'm concerned is kind of the draw for me of all these streaming platforms. It's not what they have, it's what they're creating.
Yeah, and it's so if they start creating more and more things that are like, this is a series that is only going to be on Shudder, and that's it. This is the only place you can find it. Or like we were talking about last time, like if these guys start to get the licensing specifically for like the harder to find movies or the originals that nobody else will take or that nobody else will like, because you got to think there's got to be a threshold, right? Where Netflix is going to say this movie is too messed up or, you know, whatever.
Well, I mean, they already have. Netflix doesn't have pornography.
True.
There's the threshold right there.
Yeah.
I think Netflix navigates around that per se because, you know, Netflix is a you pick what you want to watch platform as opposed to always airing stuff with advertisements. So they can just be like, yeah, we'll just put this like really crazy stuff on here. And if people watch it and they get upset, well, they're the ones who watched it. It's not our fault for having it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, did we talk about on the last podcast or recently about that show, The OA, that's on Netflix?
I know about it, but you didn't. I don't think you had talked about it.
Okay, so as far as a straight up Netflix thing, watch The OA. It's really cool. It's a Brit Marling thing, so it's going to be weird and sort of sci-fi-ish. Mm-hmm. I don't know. It's definitely like, have you seen her other like movies and stuff that she's written or acted in? Like Another Earth or The Sound of My Voice or any of that stuff?
I haven't.
Okay, so without watching any of those things, if you just watch this first, you'll be like, okay. But then if you watch her other movies and then watch this, or you watch this and then watch her other movies that she's like written and starred in, it is very, very her. Like she has this voice that is like, I hate to say monotone, but it's like, it's this one note that she just hits and she hits it really, really, really well. But that also means that all of her movies that she's like done or written and things like that are all sort of like in the same vein of this like weird sci-fi thing. And if you're not into that, or if you want to see something different, then you're not going to probably. But yeah, it's cool. For Netflix, The OA is definitely worth a watch. And then
Hello, filthy movie lovers. My name is Gentry Austin.
And I'm Casey Scott.
And we're the hosts of the Sin Syndicate, film podcast for something weirdos, anti-criterion bros, and Joseph Sarno aficionados. Join us semi-weekly as we peer into the adults-only theaters and sticky-floored cinemas of the golden age of sexploitation, when the morals were loose, the laws were murky, and the intercourse was all simulated. Find us now on the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
If you have Shudder, like I still do for some reason, Beyond the Walls is fucking cool too.
You have Shudder because you forgot to cancel it.
Yeah, so now I'm just like running with it.
Don't give Shudder credit when credit doesn't sound like it's entirely due.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, if I make it through like the original content, which I guess there's another movie, I don't know if it's like French Month over at Shudder or whatever, but there's this other French movie that's only on Shudder, or maybe Shudder's just really big in France. I don't fucking know. But if I make it through all this original content and then there's still nothing else that I like want to watch or care about on there, I'm fucking getting rid of this shit.
I don't blame you. For me, I've been, still kind of trying to get over that post-holiday, I don't know, the post-holiday drag that happens where I'm just like, don't really feel like I want to do anything. Yeah. So I really haven't been watching a whole lot of really like TV show type stuff. I watched Caddyshack again because it's on Netflix.
Oh, nice.
And still holds up. Still a great movie. Still has some really quotable lines. Always makes me sad that Rodney Dangerfield is not around anymore, because Rodney Dangerfield is probably one of my favorite comedians, and he just, I don't know, just something about his facial expressions and his comedy style is just the self-deprecating humor is great. Caddyshack, if you've never seen it, takes place at a golf course in Nebraska where it's the haves versus the have-nots, and it's got Chevy Chase, Bill Murray, Ted Knight, Rodney Dangerfield. It's a pretty funny movie. There's a lot of really funny, quotable stuff, and it doesn't lean too heavily on like the sports aspect of the movie, which I think a lot of like sports comedies do, and that kind of doesn't gel with a lot of people. So
yeah,
it's a classic.
It is. If you've never seen Caddyshack, first of all, who the fuck are you and what have you been doing for your entire life? And second of all, go and watch it right now. Go like smoke a joint, drink a beer, and watch Caddyshack.
Cannonball it, dude.
Yeah.
Cannonball it.
Cannonball it, dude.
Cannonball it. Oh my God. That scene between Bill Murray and Chevy Chase.
Cannonball.
Cannonball. Oh my God. It's so great. But we are not here to talk about Caddyshack. We're here to talk about David Fincher's masterpiece, Zodiac, from 2007. The IMDb synopsis for the film is, in the late 1960s, early 1970s, a San Francisco cartoonist becomes an amateur detective obsessed with tracking down the Zodiac Killer, an unidentified individual who terrorizes Northern California with a killing spree. Eric, I know you had seen this movie before watching it yesterday.
Yes. I had seen it. I saw it when it came out. I saw it in 2007, and I haven't watched it since. So it's been about 10 years.
What are your thoughts coming back to the film 10 years later?
Okay, so the thoughts, the definite thoughts that stuck with me over the past 9-10 years, like since watching this movie, were it was long and slow and boring. And my thoughts today after watching it last night were it's still a little too long for my taste. I mean, and let me preface this by saying I love slow movies. Slow burn movies are my favorite. When they're done right, they are the best kind of movies, in my opinion. But I think there's not enough payoff in this movie for it to be as slow and as long and as drawn out as it is.
I agree that it's a long movie, but I think the point of this movie is there is no payoff. Actually, I don't even think that that's the point. That is the point of this movie. Is you're taking the journey with these characters, and at the end of the day, like in real life,
it's frustrating.
There is no payoff. Yeah, there's no payoff. It's extremely frustrating.
Yeah, so that's, I think, something that this movie has done right is it's trying to convey this feeling to you that the people involved in the movie, in real life, really, about how this process is like so long and so drawn out, and you get a little bit of information here and a little bit of information there, but it's like not really enough to say definitively in one way or another. And then, you hit these roadblocks with like bureaucracy and things like that. And all of that stuff is just really frustrating. The problem that I have with this movie is it makes for a really frustrating movie to watch. In like another format, maybe I would like it a little bit better, or if they would have just focused on a smaller portion of this case and just like really honed in on something, then I would have been maybe a little bit more on board. But it's like it's almost this like documentary style movie that's sort of presented as a drama, and for me it just sort of gets lost in translation.
Well, and I think that is a big kind of aspect of this movie that I've heard people have a problem with, is that the movie is kind of all over the place. And because of the scope of the case, the Zodiac case and the crimes and how they took place, over this huge area, in the Bay Area of San Francisco, it's a little jarring. I mean, the first hour of this movie it's a jarring jumping from place to place. I mean, the first hour and a half of this movie, it just jumps all over the place.
Yeah.
You go from Vallejo to San Francisco, and you're just, to
Napa.
Yeah, and Jake Gyllenhaal, then to Robert Downey Jr., then right towards the end of that first hour and a half, Mark Ruffalo gets introduced with his partner, played by none other than Goose from Top Gun, Anthony Edwards.
Yep.
So, I understand that kind of sentiment towards this film that it's kind of the first hour of this movie is, aside from a select couple scenes, the first hour of this film really is all over the place. And it has to be to set up the last 2 hours of the film.
Yeah.
Because you have to get the crimes out of the way for the investigation to really kick off. And you get to see the degeneration of Jake Gyllenhaal's character and his relationship surrounding him. And that's ultimately what the movie is about. I mean, the tagline for the film is "There's more than one way to lose your life to a killer." So, the movie ultimately is about how Jake Gyllenhaal's character, Robert Graysmith, the writer of the original book on the Zodiac case, it's about how he loses his life to Zodiac in more than one way.
Yeah.
But it is a long movie, and for a lot of people, it is a slog, and I understand that.
I feel like I get that Gyllenhaal is supposed to be the main character of this movie, but I feel like they don't focus on him enough for me to care about him at all.
Well, that's the other thing. I don't think his character is very well done in the film.
No. And so, like, when you have all these, like, sort of strong characters, like Robert Downey Jr.'s character, who, let's be honest, he's just Robert Downey Jr. Then you have Mark Ruffalo, who's just like your standard cop who's frustrated about things but wants to do the right thing and wants to solve this case but wants to do right by his kids and blah, 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 and is obsessed with animal crackers. Yeah. And he fucking is addicted to animal crackers, which, god damn it. Anyways.
So it's such a strange thing that they focus on a couple times.
Yeah, they're just like, every time he gets in the car, he's like, "You don't happen to have animal crackers in here, do you?" Just like, what are you fucking talking about, dude?
Cookies. Brian Cox is Marvin Belli. What's he talking about? Cookies?
Cookies?
Like, what is going on?
Oh, Brian Cox.
But see, that's the kind of stuff that makes you remember Mark Ruffalo's character.
Yeah.
As opposed to Jake Gyllenhaal, who's just like a cartoonist who gets obsessed with this kind of for no... I never really got the sense of why he's obsessed.
Because he likes puzzles.
Zodiac. Right.
So he gets obsessed because he's like, oh, I want to solve the cipher. And then there's more ciphers. And then, you have this sort of like unsolved case. And he's just a cartoonist. Like, he's got nothing to fucking do. He's divorced. And then by the end of the movie, he's divorced again, which is the other part of this movie that kind of irks me is the movie spans... We're talking, it starts, like, the first sequence of the movie is, like, 1969. And then the last scene of this movie is in, like, 1991. And so, like, in between every scene, it seems like, and I'm pretty sure it's almost every scene. Like, every time it cuts to something else, there is a little thing at the bottom of the screen that says, San Francisco 2.5 months later, or San Francisco 4 years later, or something like that, every single time. And I'm just like, wow, all right. Like, this whole movie is just time traveling. I am teleporting everywhere through time to get to, like, the next thing that happened. And I get that that's kind of the way that this case worked, but I don't know, man. It's a lot.
It really has a hard time translating into film form.
Yeah.
Because of like I said, the scope of this case, it is so far reaching in not only its time, but also its location. I mean, it's all over the place in the Bay Area. I kind of wonder, I wonder what Fincher, what his idea was about that, because I feel like he does a good job of kind of wrangling that in. But it does hurt the first hour of this film with that kind of jumbled, unfocused aspect.
Yeah. And you know what? Like, the first hour of the movie isn't even where it starts to get boring to me. So the first hour of the movie is when you have all the kill sequences or implied kill sequences or, whatever. When you have the Zodiac, shoots the first couple in the car and then stabs the couple on the beach and sends the bulk of the letters and, all of that shit. And then after that first hour, when they start really delving into like the investigation, then it just becomes about fucking handwriting. Just They're just analyzing handwriting for the next hour and 40 minutes of the rest of the movie. And I just could not believe how many times they talked about it. It was legitimately the most talked about portion of the movie, was them analyzing handwriting. And I just couldn't get over it. I was laughing by the end of the movie.
And the fact that Jake Gyllenhaal is the main character in the film and the focus in that last hour and a half, hour 45 minutes.
Yeah.
If you don't like Jake Gyllenhaal, you're toast.
I mean, I'm okay with Jake Gyllenhaal.
No, I know, but I'm saying that if you don't like Jake Gyllenhaal as an actor, his character in the film doesn't do a whole lot to change your opinion of that, because his character in the film
it's a non-character, It's just Jake Gyllenhaal being really interested in something. He's just like, oh, this is really interesting. I really want to find out more. And there's some, don't get me wrong, there's some cool scenes in the last 2 hours of the movie where you think, there's a couple of points where they where Fincher really wants you to think that this is the guy. And that's kind of another thing that's sort of, I don't know if it irks me about this movie or not. Where there's some parts where it's blatantly obvious that they're they want you to be this is the fucking dude. They should fucking arrest this guy. This is the fucking Zodiac. All the evidence points to this guy being the Zodiac. But then the cops are well, we don't have enough evidence to pin it on him. So I guess we'll just come back to it 10 years from now and then try to interview the same guy again and see if it's still him. I'm just are you? And I get that that's probably how it went down in real life. But I don't know. Like I said, for me, it's going to come down to the payoff of the movie. And even though there was no payoff in real life, there was almost zero payoff in this movie. And for a 2 hour and 45 minute long movie, that's, I don't know, that's uncool.
Again, if you're watching this movie for payoff, I think that Fincher is, I know that he is intentionally doing it to frustrate.
Yeah.
To prove a point.
No, yeah. I get it. And in that regards, he did fantastically. He frustrated the hell out of me. I was so frustrated by the end of this movie that I was I don't know. I couldn't even. But I don't know. There's what's that sequence towards the end of the movie where Gyllenhaal finds the guy who's oh, the only handwriting match, which, God damn it, they keep fucking going back to the handwriting. Anyways, the only handwriting match that they found was on this poster for this place that one of the guys,
the most dangerous game.
Yeah, it was from this poster from this place that was showing the most dangerous game, which was quoted by Zodiac more than once. And so he goes to this dude's house and he's oh yeah, did this guy fucking Rick Marshall work here? Which they never, that was another thing. When I was watching this movie, there was a couple of things that stuck out to me is, Arthur Lee, they really want you to think that it was Arthur Lee that was the Zodiac. And the way that the movie presents it sort of presents the most evidence against him, but it's not enough evidence to say definitively that Arthur Lee, whatever the fuck his last name is the Zodiac Killer.
Arthur Lee Allen.
Yeah, there you go. Arthur Lee Allen. They definitely present his character in a way that it makes you think that he has got to be the Zodiac. But then they bring up these other people and then they mention this guy, Rick Marshall, who you never see, you never meet, but you just hear his name, and you hear his name 30 times in a matter of 15 minutes. Every sentence is Rick Marshall this, Rick Marshall that. And in my live tweeting spree last night when I was watching this movie, I think I mentioned the fact that if they say Rick Marshall again, I'm going to fucking lose my shit. But the sequence anyways, where Gyllenhaal goes to that dude's house and he's oh yeah, this guy Rick Marshall worked at this movie theater during this time, and we were led to believe that he was the one who did the artwork for the posters, and his handwriting is the only handwriting that is matched for the Zodiac. And then the guy whose house that he's at, who let's be honest, he should have never gone to this guy's house, because he just pulls up in the rain and is he's hey man, so you want to come inside and get some coffee? And he's well, no, let's go to my house. And I'm just no. Yeah. So then the guy's oh no, I did all the posters myself. And immediately I'm like, fuck, this guy's the fucking Zodiac. All they keep talking about is handwriting, and this guy's handwriting is the only handwriting that matches. This is fucking crazy. He's a fucking Zodiac. And then he goes into a basement in California, which, if you don't live in California, we have earthquakes. So we don't have basements because basements are bad for earthquakes. And it's like, I don't know. They present all this evidence in like one direction and then in another direction. And then you think it's one guy. And then they're like, oh, but this other guy also has all of these things where he might be the Zodiac, and like he was in this area around this time and all of this shit. And I'm just like, guys, what the fuck?
The way that David Fincher cast the Zodiac Killers, he cast 3 different actors to do 4 different Zodiac performances. Richmond Arquette played Zodiac at the beginning when he shoots Majot and Darlene Ferrin, and then when he stabs the people at the lake. Bob Stevenson plays Zodiac when he shoots Paul Stein in the cab, and then John Lacy, who I spoke with, played Zodiac when he has the woman in the car and he throws her, and she jumps out of the car after he sabotages her car on the highway. That is such an intentional casting choice and such an interesting way of doing it that it works towards this idea, this notion that you brought up about them, the character of Robert Graysmith and Dave Toschi, played by Mark Ruffalo, not having any idea who the Zodiac is because there's like these 3 or 4 people that all kind of fit the bill. So David Fincher really plays upon that by having 3 different actors play Zodiac.
Oh, and the 3 different actors that he has play Zodiac don't play anybody else in the movie.
Right, because then the person who plays the main suspect, like you mentioned, that they really go out of their way to kind of pin it on and focus on. And Robert Graysmith in the book also picks him as his main suspect. Robert Graysmith even went on to write a second book about how, just essentially focusing on Arthur Lee Allen and no one else. He's played by John Carroll Lynch.
Yeah, and you know what? I noticed John Carroll Lynch, I think it was in the car. So it's the guy who you have the interview with, who played Zodiac in the car with the woman and the baby.
Right.
I thought for sure that was his voice.
No, because in there's that one scene where Elias Koteas and Mark Ruffalo and Anthony Edwards go to interview John Carroll Lynch at his job.
Yeah.
I think it's like the best scene in the film, one of the best scenes, where he like changes his voice.
Yeah.
It's so good and it's so creepy.
Yeah, he plays a very creepy person in this movie, and he does a really good job.
Even if it's like unintentional, even if it's just like, well, I'm creepy. I know I'm creepy, but I didn't actually like kill anyone. I'm just a weird guy.
Yeah. He's obviously like a pedophile and shit. So it's like, he's not a good guy. He's not innocent. He's just innocent of being the Zodiac, which also
maybe he's innocent. Who knows?
Maybe. Well, he's dead now, so we'll never know. They bring up all of these things. They have the phone call that the maid answers over Christmas time, and he's like, Zodiac's like, is Brian Cox's character home or whatever? And she's like, no. He's gone, and he's like, well, it's my birthday. I need to kill. And then they figure out when his birthday is, and it's my fucking birthday. So
you're the Zodiac, Eric. You're the Zodiac.
I'm the Zodiac. Like 20 years before I was even born, I was the Zodiac. But yeah, I thought that was like, it's interesting how they go through all of these different angles of how to narrow down who this could possibly be. I don't know. I think as a movie, as like a true crime thing, if you're into true crime, which if you're not into true crime, why the fuck are you watching this movie?
And I think that's a problem, because I think a lot of people watch this movie expecting another David Fincher Fight Club or Seven. And it is the antithesis of everything he did in Seven. He purposefully didn't do in this film.
Yeah.
This is like slow burn, atmospheric suspense, and Seven is, gore and atmospheric suspense, but it also moves along at a pretty fast clip.
Yeah. Especially like the end of that movie, that it like really starts to haul ass. And sort of the same thing with like Fight Club and all of that kind of stuff.
And I personally think that Fight Club is overrated. And I know that that's an unpopular opinion, and that's fine. and this is my favorite Fincher movie, again, an unpopular opinion, that's fine.
Yeah.
But I stand by this as my favorite Fincher film. And then Girl with the Dragon Tattoo comes in at a close second.
Yeah, Girl with the Dragon Tattoo is very good.
Before we continue talking about the film, let's play that interview with John Lacy, where I spoke with him about working with Mr. David Fincher, his thoughts on the film, and what it was like to play the Zodiac Killer.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Delicious things to eat.
The popcorn can't be beat. The sparkling drinks are just dandy. The chocolate bars and the candy. So let's all go to the lobby.
I'm a big Social Network fan, but Zodiac is very, obviously very special to me. I could tell you, man, it was, without a doubt, one of the most rewarding jobs I've ever done in my 28 years, which is saying a lot because I don't have any FaceTime in the picture. I mean, it was really pitched to me as something where I was going to get 5 days with Fincher on a really great project. So I obviously wasn't going to turn it down, but I was also told up front from the casting people that, my face is really never seen. So for an actor, that's obviously not ideal. But because I was able to read the script and I'd worked with David on a couple of TV commercials, I had a little bit of a relationship, and it was obviously an admirer of his work. There was no way I was going to turn it down, and, so glad I didn't, because it just, the 5 days I spent on his set working with him and the people that he surrounds himself with was really exceptional and really a highlight in, like I said, a 28-year career. And to this day, he has still given me a couple of the most poignant, significant pieces of direction I've ever received from a director. And I teach acting now, and I use some of his technique when talking to my actors about how to make, take adjustments on the set. And he's a master. He is a master deluxe and surrounds himself with very good people.
You said that in your career, it's one of the highlights of your career. How did you get involved with the film? Just
Lorraine Mayfield was the casting director on Zodiac, and she's done every Fincher film, but you could probably go through his resume and maybe pick out one or two projects where she suddenly wasn't involved. But she has been his primary casting director. And Lorraine and I have known each other for over 20 years from the commercial world. She does mostly TV commercials, and really her only film work is with David, who obviously you probably know started in the commercial world as well at Propaganda. So Lorraine and I have a long relationship, and when she talked to him about these Zodiac suspects and what was going to be required of the actor and the physical types that they needed amongst all of the actors that were playing the shadowy suspects. It required a certain physicality, obviously, and a certain temperament. And obviously, because it's Fincher, they wanted actors and not stunt people. So Lorraine immediately thought of me once the physical type was presented to her, because I fit the mold, my size, my haircut, just her knowledge of me as an on-screen presence. I immediately came to mind. She went to my agent at the time, a woman I'm no longer with, but she went to Nancy and pitched it to Nancy. My agent didn't think I should take the job. She actually was getting a little bit in the way of it because there wasn't going to be any, legitimate screen time for me. She didn't see what was in it for me. And of course I told her she was foolish and she works for me. And of course I'm going to take the job. So Lorraine Mayfield was the reason that it came to me, because of our relationship and knowing that I would fit the physical mold, and also that I would get along with David on the set.
And, you said that your agent had some doubts about you taking the role because, in the film, you're in it for, what amounts to essentially one extended scene. You're not seen in the light at all. Your face is shrouded in darkness. Mm-hmm. For you personally, how did you feel about that?
Huge challenge. It was such a great actor challenge to have to communicate menace and subversive behavior without being able to communicate with your eyes. And because I obviously knew what the camera angles were and how I was going to be on screen, therefore I needed to communicate everything that was required for really, grotesque intentions, right? It was a great challenge. So like I said, the direction that I received from David Fincher to accomplish that physically was spectacular. We started on a real wide shot of me from my car making the approach to Ione Skye's car. And Harris Savides, just really, really exceptional cinematographer who shot the film. Just a beautiful wide shot, and they were using the red camera right when it was first starting to be incorporated into big studio pictures, but they were shooting digital, which means, directors really had the luxury of just running take after take if they needed to. And David used this wide shot for me to develop my physical gait and my physical approach to the car, knowing that if we just started wide and worked me on the limp and the lumbering quality that the two cops describe in the couple scenes before the Modesto scene, right? They describe this guy as, crew cut, lumbering gait, whatever. I don't remember their exact words. But David knew exactly how he wanted me to be physically, and he just walked me through it take after take and kept adding on to it. Okay, now, exaggerate the limp. Now exaggerate your awkwardness. Now exaggerate your self-consciousness. And he kept adding on to my handicap as an emotionally damaged killer, right? And then once we'd done that take after take, he said, now, John, overcome all of it and just go talk to her. And it was just brilliant. Suddenly I had the limp. I had the hulking, awkward, antisocial behavior, but I was trying to be charming on top of it. And it just made for, I thought, a really great physical presence. Whether it reads on camera or not was not for me to determine. I just felt it. And David knows if the actor feels it, then it's going to read. Just with using all of those impediments was just great. And it was in my psyche every take from there on after the master shot. So, from the lug nuts to putting the car in reverse and backing up and asking her into the car to all the close-ups with Ione, in the cab of the car. It was just all there. He really crafted it beautifully.
And you've been talking about the way Fincher kind of directed you and got you to exude this character. Did you do any research into the case or any prep work for the role?
Yeah, I did. The Grace Smith book, obviously I went and between Vanderbilt's screenplay and Grace Smith's book, I did some cross-referencing. I looked up the Modesto case in 1970. I knew a little bit about Arthur Lee Allen. I looked at, the clothing of the time. I looked at newspaper headlines from the times. That's just the kind of work that I always do as an actor, is especially in period pieces. I just wrapped work yesterday on a great, little film that's set right after 9/11. Literally 48 hours after the towers came down, and already thinking that 2001 is a period piece is it's exciting work as an actor. So I always go back and take a look at what was happening in the times and plant images in my brain so that all of my thoughts are character related.
And so in the film, obviously there are 3 different actors who play Zodiac: yourself, Bob Stevenson, and Richmond Arquette. And Fincher did that because of the varying eyewitness accounts, and also I've never read him saying this, but I assume that also because later in the film, after your scene, you find out that scene that you're in might not be the Zodiac Killer.
Exactly, it was a copycat.
Right. So, what did you think of Fincher's choice to do that in the film and have 3 different actors playing the same role?
Masterful to tackle a subject matter that's A, been done, and B, people know the ending. People, for the most part, I mean, maybe not common knowledge, but people that pay attention to crime dramas know that the crime was never solved. So here you have a top-notch storytelling filmmaker who's choosing to take on a subject and tell it in such suspenseful fashion, knowing that his audience is sitting there going, well, I know for a fact this isn't going to be solved, so what's Fincher's take? And Fincher took the anecdotal evidence and the factual evidence and the Graysmith book and his own instincts and arrived at his own conclusion and was able to paint a picture that gives you 96.5 certainty that it was Arthur Lee Allen, but leaves just enough wiggle room to say, oh, I'm not saying it was Arthur Lee Allen. I'm saying this is where the evidence pointed. And this is what, Gyllenhaal's character, this is where all of his instincts, hunches, and information led him. And here's why it was so cloudy. And here's why it was such a difficult trail to follow. Is because of copycats and because of the 911 calls. And then the brilliance to take our voices, which is why I really think it's an innovative, not just think, I know it's an innovative film on that artistic level, is to take John Lynch's voice and my voice, have us go into the ADR booth and lay down each other's dialogue. So I did all of John's dialogue for the 911 calls and the lakeside stabbing scene and my scene with Ione. If you listen closely, and it sounds like you've studied the film closely, it goes in and out from my voice to John. And what David did in the ADR post session was had John impersonate me, which is, not an easy thing to do, and me impersonate John, which is not an easy thing to do, knowing that then he could mix and match our voices and keep the audience constantly off balance of who it is they're even hearing on the phone. So, for instance, you'd hear on the lakeside scene, when he comes upon them and says, I'm not afraid. It's John Lynch's voice. It's, I'm not afraid to kill again, right? But then when he puts them down on the ground, it's clearly me saying, I'm taking your car and going to Mexico, right? And then it goes back to Lynch's voice on Get on Your Stomach. It's very subtle because our voices are similar, which is another reason we were cast. And then he also just had me in the ADR kind of doing a John Carroll Lynch, which, like I said, isn't easy to do. Doesn't have the kind of voice you can impersonate. But he wanted to do a sleight of hand with sound so that you're just never sure. And even in the car, half of that stuff in the car is mine and half of it is John Carroll Lynch. But that's just really, it's really innovative. The sound editor said she'd never done anything quite like it.
Did you record any of the audio for when he has his scene with Mark Ruffalo and Elias Koteas and Anthony Edwards? Did you do any of that audio work, the dialogue work as well?
No, did not. It was just for the hooded Lakeside, and this is just for me. I'm not sure what else they had John do. I did the hooded Lakeside and the 911 calls.
Huh. So, I think that's one of the biggest successes of the film is David Fincher not really he takes a stance on who Zodiac is.
Totally.
But he really doesn't.
No, he leaves
because of the way
enough
he
legal
does.
Wiggle room.
Right. And I think that's one of my favorite parts of the film is that your performance and Bob Stevenson's performance and John Carroll Lynch's performance and Richmond Arquette's performance are all, they're not all the same, but there's that underlying thread that ties them together.
Yeah.
And I think that, the four of you playing the same character, in John Carroll Lynch's, case, theoretically, obviously,
sure.
I think that is really the biggest success. And some people who've seen this film and don't realize that, I think that fooling people is also another huge success of the film because it does fool people.
Big time. And a lot of it is with the audio.
Right.
Right? Because John Carroll Lynch's voice, because he's the best known of the four of us, right? He's the actor that, because of Fargo and because of his resume, people hear him and they can identify and then they see his face. And when they see a film a second or third time, they can go, oh, yeah, well, that's clearly John Lynch. But as soon as you think you've got that nailed down, then it's not John, it's me. And it throws you just enough off balance
And I think that that's just, it's a testament to your ability as an actor and his ability. Everyone who played Zodiac in the film do such a great job. And with the voice acting, I think is even better. Obviously, that it just perpetuates that that sense of unease and, I don't know, questioning what the film lays down as the truth.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. It meant so much to me that I still have the hood that I wore in the ADR. That they cut out the holes, and they wanted me to have a muffled quality for the lakeside scene. So they put this hood over my head, and I just remember being in there for hours with David. And like I said, I think her name was Gwendolyn, sitting in that, just standing in that room and watching those takes of the lakeside stabbing, which is easily the most difficult, grotesque scene in the film, and having to watch it over and over again, and laying down John's dialogue to match was something I'll never forget.
So, let's talk about the scene that you filmed with Ione Skye in the car. You said it took place over 5 days.
Yeah.
Kind of what went into the filming of that scene? How involved were you?
Well, for starters, just to know that I was going to be in those circumstances on that highway, the early morning hours in this film, opposite Ione Skye, who I've, like you probably, just such a fan of. Say Anything was one of those films that just really grabbed me and is on that really short list of romantic comedies. It's just such a special picture, and it just has been for so long in my subconscious that to know that was the actress I was going to have to torment with that dialogue and under those circumstances was a huge challenge. And it took some real acting chops for both of us to sit in there in a vintage car at 3:00 in the morning on a interstate next to an artichoke farm in Camarillo, and really cold, and deal with those circumstances. Before I kill you, I'm going to throw your baby out the window. And the challenge to do that night after night, and then in between takes, being shuttled back to a transport van to stay warm, and then going back and locking into that car and covering that scene from a variety of angles was just intense, beyond intense. It was almost to the point of traumatic. And coincidentally, maybe a little less than a week after we both wrapped that scene, I ran into her at a Mexican restaurant in Marina del Rey, just coincidentally. And we looked at each other almost like, combat veterans. And we just hugged each other and said, hey, how you doing? But the embrace was one of, holy shit, did we really go through that? Because it was so real and intense, and to get the look of horror that David wanted to land on her face when the reality sets in, what she's just heard me say and what she now knows is about to happen, to get that look in close-up, David really pushed me uncomfortably beyond my Minnesota ethical comfort zone to say whatever I could come up to get her to have the most, horrified look on her face. And he just kept pushing me to go darker and deeper. And it was nuts, because here I am with this actress who I admire and I have this other perception of, and now I'm saying things to her, that I would never repeat.
But I mean, I think that's one of Fincher's, successes as a director, is he knows how to get what he wants from the actors. To a point, obviously there's some things you shouldn't do to get a response from an actor, but I think that's really one of his biggest successes as a director, is being able to elicit a tangible reaction from the actors.
Without a doubt. He is, I would almost say that he's the best in the business. And I'm a big Paul Thomas Anderson fan, a huge Inarritu and Chris Nolan. There's so many great filmmakers working right now, but I just can't think of anyone better than David. in terms of working with actors, communicating on set with actors to get what he needs for the camera. Like I said, he surrounds himself with exceptional talent, and then he really does know how to go for the jugular with his actors.
What was your reaction to the film? What did you think of it when you first saw it?
Brilliant. The music, the color palette, the performances from, Anthony Edwards to Chloe to obviously, Mark and Jake Gyllenhaal. It was exceptional. It was one of my favorite Robert Downey Jr. performances. The music, the sure-handedness of the way he edits his films with such confident storytelling, acumen. He's a craftsman. He's a really, really exceptional filmmaker. So I haven't been disappointed in any of his films, to be honest. But I like you said, I think I hold Zodiac as my favorite Fincher film, and that is saying quite a bit.
Well, with his resume, Alien 3 probably notwithstanding.
Sometimes you take a cash grab. There's a lot of money on the table, but I'm sure if you even went back and looked at that, you'd probably find some stuff in there that's pretty inspired.
Yeah, no, for sure. I know he doesn't do interviews for for Alien 3 for a reason. So there's that. Yeah. I think Zodiac gets kind of a bad rap. I've shown it to people and I've suggested it to people, and people have told me, "Oh, the movie's so long, it drags." I think that that's purposeful, though, that the movie has the length that it does, because the longer the film goes on, the more you understand and you kind of take this trip with the characters, especially the Robert Graysmith character, of he is not losing his mind, but
he's obsessed.
Yeah, he's obsessing to the point of just, everything else is second to the Zodiac.
Yeah. And without the arduousness of the journey, the diner scene with the salt and pepper shakers doesn't pay off. The scene in the hardware store doesn't pay off to the extent that it pays off. And Fincher is just, he's a master at the morphine drip that keeps you going, knowing, again, because he's sure-handed in his storytelling, knowing that he's going to deliver you to a place that's emotionally very both rewarding and exhausting.
Yeah.
That's a real talent.
Right.
There's a lot of filmmakers that they shoot the script, they storyboard it, they let their DP dictate a certain amount of coverage, and then they throw it to the editor and hope for the best. And that's just, the filmmakers that we are celebrating right now in 2016, that's not the way they work. And that's why we're seeing so many exceptional movies these past few years, is you have directors that are really putting their signature on their films.
No, I completely agree. I'm still waiting for Fincher to get that Oscar win. I was really bummed out that Zodiac never got much of anything.
No.
Which was a huge bummer for me as a fan of the film.
Needless to say, I was disappointed also. I was very happy to see how well Social Network did, because talk about a film that could have, on so many levels, not worked because of the subject matter. But man, you take an Aaron Sorkin script with David Fincher, and look what you get.
Well, and I think that's Fincher's ability as a director to kind of transcend genres as well. I mean, you have Gone Girl, then you have Social Network, then you have this film, then you have, Alien 3, Panic Room, Fight Club. They're all kind of all over the place genre-wise, but they all kind of have that same kind of feel and thread to them that is just so Fincher that you watch it and
Yeah, I just watched Seven a couple nights ago with my 20-year-old son, and just blown away yet again by his storytelling style. And it's not for everyone, for sure, because he definitely, he gravitates to the macabre. But, even going back to The Game, I was a big fan of The Game.
I had never seen that film, and I watched it for the first time, I want to say 2 years ago.
Uh-huh.
And I was, oh man.
Right?
Yeah.
It's great. And that was a long time ago, man. The Game must be almost over 20 years ago. Geez. 20 plus. Zodiac was already 10 years ago.
if y'all's performances hadn't been as strong, I think the movie would have been kind of a failure, because there's 4 scenes in the film with Zodiac. The rest is Gyllenhaal and Downey Jr. and Ruffalo kind of doing their investigative thing. But those 4 scenes set the tone so well that, they're front loaded in the first 45 minutes of the film. Exactly. And then the rest is them kind of doing their thing. And I think that that's really successful in the film.
Well, you're a very shrewd film observer. I think that's an excellent analysis, and I couldn't agree more. I've championed the film since it came out, and I'm a big film fan, and I watch films very closely. And if you watch films closely, it's undeniable that it's a craftsman's film, and Fincher is a craftsman. He's a really, really exceptional storyteller.
So big thanks to John Lacy for sitting down and talking with me about Zodiac. Let's talk a little bit about the performances outside of Jake Gyllenhaal, because I think we've kind of focused on him a lot. And albeit he is the main focus of the last half of the film, but This is like a dream cast for me with Jake Gyllenhaal, this is like the only film I really like him in. I always kind of find Gyllenhaal to be a little flat in everything I've seen him in. Except for Nightcrawler, which he's pretty good in.
I feel like Nightcrawler is like the character that I wish that he had played in this movie. Because Nightcrawler is really like when you get obsessed with something to the point where like you get weirdly obsessed with it.
When you're willing to commit the crime so you can cover the crime.
And so they sort of like borderline get to that point, like with his character in this movie, like, he's losing his marriage over it. It is an unhealthy obsession, but like he never gets to the point where he's like mentally weird about it anymore. At least to the point of like changing his like persona type of thing, I guess.
He never takes it to the next logical step, which is committing crimes or doing like Toschi supposedly did, writing your own Zodiac letters to keep the Zodiac Killer in the forefront of...
Right, exactly. And it's weird like how they briefly touch on that and then all of a sudden Toschi's just like not a cop anymore. And I'm just like, wait, what? That's another one of those pieces where it's like they had to jump around because in order to present all the information, this would have had to have been like a 4-hour long movie, or they could have just made it like a documentary miniseries, and there you go.
TV, like on HBO or Showtime.
Yeah.
Which I think would have worked better.
You have to kind of think like under the constraints of what they were doing or what they could sort of do at the time. This was, 10 years ago. So this was before things like all the, true crime stuff that's out on Netflix now, and like the, HBO just had that big
TV went nuts.
Yeah. As far as performances go, Ruffalo did a good job, I think. But, he's playing that like stock cop, there's the stock cop banter. They present a lot of that like bureaucratic, interdepartmental, miscommunication that is sort of,
which was huge in the actual Zodiac case.
Right. And so like everybody, because all of these crimes happened in all these different places, each sort of department has different pieces of the puzzle and nobody is sharing anything with each other. And so it's like 4 years later, somebody gets another piece of the puzzle and they go, why the fuck didn't we have this in the first place? And they're like, you never asked.
Because we didn't have fax machine, man.
Yeah, I was like, oh, we don't have a fax machine. Yeah, if you want to go back and, there's, oh my God.
A crime like the Zodiac killings couldn't be committed in 2016 or 2017.
I don't think that's true. I think it could totally be committed now.
Where they're like sending letters to the police?
Maybe not.
That's my point. Like the advent of technology puts something like the Zodiac Killer at a huge disadvantage, which is why this is such an interesting film, because you do get that the period piece aspect of this film is maybe the most frustrating part for me, because there are a lot of like missed opportunities, like missed them by just an inch.
Yeah, you're just like, oh, you cops are so stupid. Why couldn't you just catch this guy? It's so obviously him.
Because they didn't have the information because they were radioed one thing and then another thing was the case.
Yeah, exactly.
My kind of feelings on the cast are I think everyone is cast really well. I like the idea of the three different Zodiac killers plus John Carroll Lynch as none of them as his own character, even though he's, the suspicious one.
Oh, and then you have creepy guy with the basement who is like, honestly, the second creepiest guy in the whole movie. His character really takes a turn halfway through that conversation.
Yeah, that scene is really well done. Charles Fleischer, who, fantastic character actor. If you've watched a movie in the last decade, you've probably seen him. He was in Tales from the Crypt, Demon Knight.
Oh yeah,
been in so many things.
He's a really, really good, like, creepy character actor.
Yeah,
he hits home runs every time.
And kind of, I guess my big gripe, and this is kind of a product of the times. I like Mark Ruffalo and I like Robert Downey Jr. and I like Anthony Edwards in this film so much. I wish there were more of them.
Yeah.
Robert Downey Jr. straight up disappears about an hour and a half into this film.
I don't know if they shot like a bunch more stuff with him in it and then had to cut it out because the movie was, 3.5 hours long, or...
The director's cut does not have much more of him in the film.
God. Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, again, this is a film based off of a true story, so that's the way it happened. You could take a license with it up to a point.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. His character, though, is just like kind of the stock Robert Downey Jr. Like, he's a likable asshole type of guy where you're like, damn, that guy's cool. He's a fucking dick, but damn, that guy's fucking cool.
And mind you, this is Downey Jr. 2007. So this is Downey Jr. the year before
Iron Man.
The year before we have Robert Downey Jr. as like the man.
Right. So it's like this is Robert Downey Jr. coming back from Robert Downey Jr. being gone for a while.
Yeah. Like if I had tried to get an interview with Robert Downey Jr. 10 years ago, I probably could have gotten it. But now,
no,
because he's Iron Man, Marvel figurehead, Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah.
That's like all he does anymore.
Yeah, he's just Tony Stark, and then he does... I doubt they're going to do another Sherlock Holmes movie.
Thank God.
Yo, you didn't like those?
Did anybody?
I liked the first one.
I think when you have Sherlock Holmes, Iron Man, Tony Stark, Robert Downey Jr., Sherlock Holmes, and then you have Benedict Cumberbatch, Sherlock Holmes.
Oh, yeah.
And you see where I'm going with that?
Yeah, Benedict Cumberbatch, Sherlock Holmes is a better, like...
It's a less Americanized Sherlock Holmes. He doesn't sit and, like, do kung fu and karate.
Yeah, it's a classic Sherlock Holmes is what it is.
Yeah, classic Sherlock Holmes in the 21st century.
Yeah.
But, aside from kind of the big players, the faces on the poster, as it were.
Yeah.
Brian Cox is really great. John Carroll Lynch is fantastic.
He's my favorite, yeah.
John Carroll Lynch. I think he's a huge standout in this film. Everyone who is involved with playing the Zodiac they bear a huge weight of the film's kind of horror and suspense.
Those are like the only scenes of the movie that like really captured my attention for the entire time are those scenes when things start to get really creepy, really weird. When you think the person you're talking to is the Zodiac and you're going like, oh my God, dude, this is the fucking guy right here. Why don't they just fucking arrest him? Why can't they just shoot him?
Scene with another guy.
And then you're like, this is the fucking guy. Oh no. Those are the successful sequences in this movie. The problem with is those sequences are so few and far between, and the rest of the sequences are about analyzing and matching handwriting that it just becomes bullshit at a certain point.
I like how hung up on the fact that you get to watch Philip Baker Hall. His character's just like, the R's don't match. The R's don't match.
He's like, the lowercase, there are similarities in the lowercase R's. Like, oh shit, this is our guy, dude. There are similarities in the lowercase R's. And then he's like, look, the K's in the older letters, they were done with 2 strokes. In the newer letters, they were done with 3. I'm like, okay. And
I understand not liking this movie and being frustrated with this movie because it is a slow-paced, it is investigative journalism as a film.
Yeah.
I would place this like in a similar spot with like Spotlight, which again, a bunch of people thought Spotlight was boring. I liked Spotlight. I didn't think it was boring, but I understood everyone being like, Spotlight won the Oscar for best film? Really? Yeah, because I understood where they were coming from.
Yeah, I never saw Spotlight. I had no desire to see that.
You probably wouldn't like it because it's kind of like Zodiac. It's like Zodiac but with Michael Keaton.
Yeah.
And Mark Ruffalo.
He's fucking in it, yeah.
Yeah. So I really like films like this. These investigative journalism films, All the President's Men, another film like this. You probably wouldn't like it if you watched it. It's a film that's really well regarded, but again, you probably wouldn't like it if you watched it because it's kind of boring.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Something about the atmosphere and the world that these movies create just really is in my wheelhouse. I mean, when they're going down to the job where Paul Schulze and I'm trying to remember the other actor, where Paul Schulze works, and they're interviewing him about Arthur Lee Allen, and they're talking about how they went out on a boat with him, and he was talking about killing the little kids, and he had the Zodiac watch. That kind of stuff to me. I just eat that shit up. I love it. It's great.
As far like the true crime, because like I love true crime shit. I listen to probably like 4 different true crime podcasts, and just like will obsess about like certain like serial murders and like other weird things like that for like sometimes weeks at a time, and just like do all of the like due diligence of the Googling on that stuff. And I'm just like going through this movie kind of going, if this was presented in a different way, it would make a lot more sense.
And we need to talk about the fact that the Zodiac killings were never solved.
Oh yeah. It's like, aren't the cases still open?
I mean, they're closed, but you know what I mean? They're open cases, but I don't think that there's still the Zodiac Task Force.
Yeah, it's like a cold case now. So it's like one of those like unsolved, still open.
The only way that this case would ever get solved is if they find someone who has something like say they went into their parents' attic and they found a box with like some like a piece of Paul Stein's shirt and other stuff like it, and like Zodiac, like unsent Zodiac letters.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's the only way that any of this would ever get solved. Because at this point, let's be honest here, as frustrating as the movie is, real life is more frustrating because they're never going to solve the Zodiac.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's one of those things, man. Like, you know, we could believe, and, you know, like you've said, and like, even after I watched this movie, because I was so frustrated, you know, at 2 in the morning when I finished it, that I was like, I need to find out who the real Zodiac is. I need to look it up right now. So
you went to ZodiacKiller.com.
Yeah. So, and that was a porn site actually. So I had to go to ZodiacKiller.org, which is not a porn site. So
ZodiacKiller.com is the right website. You maybe just spelled it wrong.
Yeah. It's maybe I said Zodiac Killer.
Yes, the Zodiac.
I think I fucked that up. So after, you know, going down the rabbit hole a little bit, you know, the Arthur Lee Allen is basically who everybody thinks the Zodiac was. Everybody's like, this is the guy.
And mind you, go to ZodiacKiller.com and they have nothing but absolute just hatred for Robert Graysmith. Yeah,
I guess I might have to check out that website now and spell it correctly this time. It's so weird to me. It's like, so if 75 or 80% or even, you know, 90% of the population thinks that this one dude, who is now dead, unfortunately, committed these crimes, but there was never enough evidence to say definitively that he did. And they even had like a warrant for his trailer, and they raided his trailer. And then there was the whole thing about like how the last Zodiac letter happened right before he went to jail, and then he was in jail for 4 years for touching kids again. And then when he came back out of jail, that's when the, you know, next Zodiac letter came out. You know, and the kid who was shot, you know, like back in 69, back then in 1991, said he's like, this is the fucking guy. And he points at him, and that's the last scene of the movie. And
then DNA exonerates him in a post film like credit roll.
Yeah, they're like, oh yeah, then they did like DNA like 10 years after that, which is insane to me. So it's like, it took 20 2 years for them to track down this kid and say which one of these guys is the guy that shot you, which to me is insane. If this kid skips town, right after these murders happen and nobody got him to, do some stuff, like they didn't get him 10 years after, they didn't get him 15 years after it happened. It was 22 years after he was shot by this guy. And he goes, yeah, this is the fucking dude right here. I mean, I get it. Like, if you get shot point blank like 40 times in the fucking face, which he didn't get shot in the face, but he did get shot a lot of times.
You apparently become a McPoyle from It's Always Sunny.
Well, it's like, oh, God damn it. Yeah. He was just,
Right.
He was just drinking milk and in between scenes. And
every time I see that actor in anything, I always laugh.
yeah. But yeah, so the fact that they couldn't get any of this shit done in a timely manner is the part of it that just is so fucking frustrating to me. Maybe I just don't like this movie because of how frustrating this case is.
But again, that ultimately is the point of this film.
No, yeah.
It's to show that stuff like this, it's a frustration for everyone, especially people that, were involved. My mom lived in San Francisco she grew up in San Francisco, so she remembers the events of the film. She remembers it.
Yeah.
So when I went and saw this movie with her, and she said that it was an extremely uncomfortable film to watch, and I believe it. It's a straightforward true crime film that has that David Fincher feel to it.
Yeah.
I understand people not liking it, but I think that of David Fincher's films, it fits right into his lexicon of works.
Yeah.
Pretty well.
Yeah, it definitely is a David Fincher movie. It doesn't he's not straying away from, his usual tone in this movie. Now, there are some tone inconsistencies in this movie that sort of irk me a little bit. And I've been noticing this a lot lately with just different movies, newer movies and older movies too, where the music cues that happen from section to section will completely take me out of the movie. So in this movie, you have these sequences that are these really stark, sort of eerie sequences, where there's all of this stuff. They're interviewing, who you think might be the Zodiac, or even one of the kill sequences or something like that, where it's this really tense moment. And then immediately afterwards, it's upbeat, 70s, just whatever music, because they're oh, okay, now we're going to do some investigation. Now we're at the fucking courthouse. Now we're at the fucking newspaper place. And I'm just guys, what the fuck?
No, yeah, that's, again, I think that it's an issue of this movie, is that it jumps around a lot. So the tones kind of don't feel consistent.
Yeah. I don't know.
And again, that's just a product of the way that this movie is. That's a product of the case. I don't think you could do this film justice if you were just okay, we're just going to focus on 1969.
Yeah.
And the Zodiac, because it's just it's not even much of a film.
Yeah, I think as a 2-hour movie, which this movie is, I mean, I didn't even watch the director's cut.
Longer than 2 hours, which I watched the director's cut.
Is the director's cut 3 hours long?
It's 167 minutes, so it's 13 minutes shy of 3 hours.
Oh, maybe I did watch the director's cut. Yeah, because
it's a long movie, but again, it's the frustration factor doesn't go away. It's probably intensified by watching the longer version of the film.
But yeah, so I don't know. I think as a standalone movie about Zodiac, I don't know. I mean, but yeah, you're right. You can't just focus on one aspect of this case and kind of call that a 2-hour movie and just be cool, we can go into much more detail and we can jump around a lot less because, we're focusing on a smaller area of what's happening. But maybe that's even more frustrating because then you don't even get remotely the full picture, which I feel you get a more full picture from this movie than, I don't know, than most.
A lot of other true crime films that I've seen.
Yeah. Then pretty much anything that's not a documentary or a mini series about true crime stuff. This movie is actually doing a much better job than most of those other dramatized true crime things. It's just I don't know, it's a lot of information to be presenting over the course of 2 hours and 45 minutes
in a narrative format.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of the big takeaway here, is that this film almost presents so much information that it almost doesn't feel like a narrative format film.
Yeah, dude, I'm telling you, if we could go back in time and convince David Fincher to do a 6-part miniseries where the episodes are like an hour long on HBO and redo this movie, I would be 100% on board with it.
It'd be amazing too.
Yeah, it would be fantastic. You have all this shit now, like, the night of, and, the jinx and all of this shit that's, happening. This movie would be so perfect in that format.
Yep. But I you could say that about a lot of stuff too. It's kind of unfortunate because the way that TV is now, it's kind of transcended the medium of TV.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, let's play the interview with Paul Schulze, who plays Sandy Panzarella in the film. We talk about Zodiac, and when we get back, we'll finish up talking about the film.
It's intermission time, folks, so hurry, hurry, hurry. Step right over to our refreshment center for the most extravagant array of refreshment goodies ever assembled under one roof. Visit our refreshment center now.
Enjoy your evening to the fullest. How about some snowy, crisp, and crunchy popcorn? That's a fine way to relax. Just sit and munch contentedly while you enjoy the show. Bring enough popcorn back for the whole family. Everyone likes popcorn.
In the film, you play Sandy Panzarella.
Thank you. I had I wouldn't have remembered that even if you gave me 10 hints. Okay.
Right. What drew you to the role of Sandy in the film? How did you get involved with the film?
I wasn't drawn to the role. I was and still am and forever will be a good soldier when David Fincher is the general, and I'll go where he tells me to go. He just I think he called. My memory is that I think he just said, "I got something for you in this. Take a look at it." And whatever. As always, David is so so smart. And he's like, "You remember that stuff? You're old enough, right? You remember Zodiac?" I said, "I do." And so we talked about it, and it was fun. It was fun to wear a wig. It was fun to do a period kind of piece, and in that way. And then it was just a couple of scenes. I mean, I thought too when I saw the email with you saying you'd like to ask Paul some questions about Zodiac, I was like, my God, is he already up to like the 84th person on the call sheet? Yeah, but yeah, I mean, and I have to say, knowing, just thinking today at different moments that we were going to talk, I started to just kind of reflect back, and there were a couple of really interesting things about that movie while we were making it. First was, and David is so unbelievably enthusiastic. He has an incredible amount of energy, but he's also very focused and very serious. So it's a beautiful. There's nothing flighty about the process, and he's also so exacting. He'll take after take after take after take, and for a lot of actors, that's not necessarily what they want to do. But he is so involved and so enthusiastic that it becomes a lot easier to do. And among other things, he was really into the technology they were using. That was shot, I believe, on it was. We were checking the chip. We were not checking there was no film stock. It was shot on video, and it was with this, and it was pretty. I think it was a brand new kind of camera. And he was really into it, really into looking at his frame and seeing what could be done with light and all that stuff. And it was infectious and it was great. And I also had this other great moment I'll never forget. David saying, "All right, Paul, do it again." I had some scene. I was on the phone with one of the two investigators, and I think it's on the phone call that I actually that I remind them that no, he was ambidextrous. There was some kind of real a big piece of information that got shared during by my guy.
Right.
And so we're doing it, and David's like, "That's great, Paul. It's great." And he's behind the monitor. He's not right there. And he's like, "All right, do me a favor. This time, do the same thing, but play with the cord a little bit. Play with the telephone cord. Just flick it. Just flick it once and let it kind of bounce back and forth. And I'm like, my man, you know, he's looking at the whole frame. He's not just looking at a performance. He's certainly looking at a performance too. But he's just, I don't know, he's very interesting and fun, you know, fun guy.
Well, and you obviously worked with him in 2002 on Panic Room. Did you notice kind of any, you know, what was it like working with him in 2002 versus in 2007 on Zodiac?
Well, he was, I don't know, he was pretty sure of himself in 2002 also, and I bet you he was sure of himself when he was directing Nike commercials. And he'll be sure of himself forever because I think he knows what he knows, and he's not worried about it. I can't really think of a big difference. You know, I bumped into him in the street years even after Zodiac. He had actually just finished, I guess, I don't know if he directed. I'm so bad. I don't know anything about my industry. I know some good people, thank God, but I really don't pay enough attention. And I often put my foot in my mouth. But I know he did the girl with the dragon tattoo, and I don't know if he's done more than one. I don't know.
He's just done the one.
Okay, so he had just finished that, and I bumped into him in Soho. We were literally like standing on opposite sides of a street. We were standing on adjacent corners waiting for traffic, and it's a pretty narrow street, so it's kind of intimate, even though there are vehicles in between us going back and forth, and we see each other and we say hello, and then we kind of came together when the traffic stopped, and just you know, embraced and caught up a little bit. And he was tired. He admitted, and that's such a rare thing. I said, "How's it going?" He said, "I'm whooped." And he had just wrapped, you know, and it was a pretty ambitious thing. So, yeah, I mean, the difference, I don't know. I know Panic Room was he had a lot of challenges with Panic Room, and I think he made a really cool movie. And he had a lot of challenges with Zodiac too. I think he's very brave, you know. I think when you look at a movie like Zodiac, and he had an idea of what to do, and it really had a quality that he just refused to sell out from. You knew it wasn't going to be some big commercial thing. You just knew it. You knew when you were making it, you know, and I don't know that he was interested in that. He really wanted to tell this story, and he really wanted to look a certain way and feel a certain way. I don't know. I'm totally talking out my ass. I can't. I mean, I would hate to think that he would say, "Are you kidding me, Paulie? You don't think I wanted it to be a huge success?" Of course I did. But and he probably did, but he certainly didn't. I think when you look at it, there are. I mean, I don't know. I got to stop talking there. I just thought it was brave, and I think he's still just kind of stuck to, you know, his guns. You know, I mean, you think of Social Network, you know, and that. I was so impressed with the beginning of that movie with these kind of wonder kids talking, and it made me feel, it was so frustrating because I was like, I can't understand half the shit they're saying.
Right.
And it dawned on me that I'm not supposed to, that's exactly what he wants. That some of us that are my age and I don't know, probably 12, 15, 20 years younger than me, everyone felt old. From that line up, you know what I mean? We just felt old, and the young ones. I mean, I never forget having like a smartphone years ago, and I was like, Jesus Christ, I can't figure this thing out. And then I had like a 12-year-old nephew, and he was like, give it to me. And he did whatever I needed, and he handed it back, and with his eyes rolling, he said, "I'm so old." And I was like, I'm not too old to whip that ass, but you know, there it was. And it was, I found that at that moment, I felt old and then exhilarated watching that. I was like, wow, that's cool. that's brave, you know. And I think he is, and I definitely think he was with that, in the way he rendered Zodiac.
No, I agree. The film has a very specific tone and a specific style that it echoes Fincher's style, but it also does something a little different because obviously it's a period piece.
Mm-hmm.
He hadn't really done a period piece up until that point. So I think he was kind of putting in some of his style along with kind of figuring out some new ground to tread, if that makes sense.
And I think there's so much texture in that movie, and it's so much about style and so much about that period. There's something about the light and everything. It feels kind of like, it made me remember, like, I don't know, just like TV in a different way, you know. And one thing is for damn sure, whatever that man does, it was thoughtful, thought out, and purposeful, you know. And that was, and he is. He's an interesting, smart guy. I hope, God, I don't do the math. That was 2002, 2007, no, 2012 is long gone. Maybe 2017 is my next opportunity. I hope so. I like him. I think he's really interesting.
Did you do any kind of research for your role in the film?
You know, not really. I did a little. I remember looking up the guy. I mean, it was, how can you not, right? It was so interesting to be able to do something that was historical. That was
right.
You could look at a picture of the character you were playing, and I did that. And I read a little bit about him, and I guess I had some access to, I don't know, questions that I might have had, but honestly, I can't remember. I can't recall specifically. But I do know it was fun to go online, you know, and look up lots of different characters from that story,
right?
And just get a feel for how they were living, how they were thinking, what was happening,
right?
Yeah. But yeah, I didn't do that much more. I remember I'm kind of laughing to myself. I have this ongoing joke with Edie Falco about I teased her once about researching something, and she whatever, she was very flippant. I mean, she always will be. She'll never know. Like, I mean, it's vintage Falco too. When for her to like win an Emmy for the first year of Nurse Jackie and say, "Oh, this is the stupidest thing I've ever heard of. I'm not funny," because it was a half an hour, and I thought to myself, well, I thought two things, and I told her this. I said, sweetie, first of all, it's not the accolade and the award does not go to the funniest actor. It goes to the best actor in a comedy. So give yourself a little slack. And second of all, I guarantee you will never win another one. Not for telling them that. Like, whoever voted for me, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard of. It's like, uh-oh. But that's kind of her, just sort of very New York, and that was her shot at she was trying to sound as humble as she is, but I think it came across a little just, she was very shocked. She really was. But anyway, we had this ongoing joke about research where I was like, well, you're not really into research. She's like, come on. Like, yeah, whatever. She does her work. She does it beautifully. She just sometimes doesn't get as methody as some others.
Right.
Yeah, but I don't remember, Chris. I don't really remember doing, my guy was fairly peripheral, and there wasn't that much about him because he was just a working stiff, who happened to know the guy. But there was some stuff available.
What was it like working with Anthony Edwards?
Very cool. He was. I don't know. It was nice. He's kind of I think he was kind of a yeoman, guy, doing his. Well, I don't know. We were moving along, man. We were moving along. We got it. We just got it. We got it done. They were figuring. I remember being happy that he was cast in it because I always liked him just as an actor.
Right.
And I thought that it was interesting that he was chosen. And yeah, it was nice to work with him. He was very, very professional, very straight up and down. I'm sure very nice as well, but there wasn't I wasn't around that much. It was pretty quick.
Right.
Yeah. Unlike, in Panic Room, for example, it was a very intense, again, not much dialogue, not that many days shooting by any means, but it was much more intense and a whole long couple of days with Jodie Foster. So there was more of an opportunity to get a feel for the person,
What did you think of the final film?
Again, I thought it was interesting. I love what he does with he's just able to tell a story and shoot a story in a way that is. I was creeped out. I found it scary, and frustrating. The kind of, whatever. He's making me feel the way I think anyone watching it is supposed to feel. But I was just, I don't know. I was struck by the style, and I was also it was scary in a very he creates tension in a very interesting way.
Right.
And I had a lot of it,
Of the David Fincher films that you've seen, and obviously having been in two of them, do you have a favorite David Fincher film?
I'm trying to think that, boy, when I look at, I haven't seen that many, but my gosh, even the ones I have seen, what a variety of stuff, huh? I mean, my gosh, between Seven, right? That's him,
right?
And Social Network. What again? And Zodiac is so far out. I mean, I don't know. It's hard to answer. I don't even know the last few that he's done. Didn't see The Woman with the Dragon Tattoo. I don't know, man. The Game was really cool too. It's curious. I think you might be right. I mean, Zodiac was. I think it's a really dynamite picture, man. I think it might be Zodiac. I don't know. I really liked Social Network too, though. I loved it. I thought it was. I just thought it had. He gets an idea, He's consistent to whatever his vision is, and it just and I don't know that it's that easy, especially when you're doing something that's. I don't know if commercial is the right word for it, but it doesn't matter. But he doesn't lose sight. He does not lose sight. Even like Panic Room, you have this, whatever. I guess that's why you keep the same people from beginning to the end, You want the same cinematographer, you want that same, and Zodiac was so interesting that way. Just that light and that the way it just the way it was shot. It kind of it's funny that Paul Thomas Anderson's Boogie Nights. There's similar. Again, such period piece, but there's some things about it that remind me. They're just kind of. Fincher's was so much more saturated. I loved that. Or maybe it was not. Maybe that's the wrong word. Maybe the other one's more saturated. This one felt more so flat. You know what I mean? And the light was so like it felt just so I don't know, stark and flat. It was really interesting. And so I don't know, but the guy certainly knows what the hell he's doing. And that's my answer. I can't really give one.
A lot of gray in Zodiac. That's the way I look at it.
There's tons of gray.
Yeah. Gray and like dark brown. That's like the entire color palette for the film.
And that dark brown is the real upsetting part. You know what I mean? More than the gray. It's like that flat brown. Like what a dull fucking color to say. I mean, like New York is blue and gray, and so is Paris, and Paris is a little more yellow too, but that's fantastic, but it takes a lot of balls to go with brown, man, and it had it.
Yeah, the closest film that I've seen that comes to Zodiac is one of the films that's nominated for an Oscar this year, Spotlight. They kind of have that same feel and tone to them, and same kind of washed out, upsetting color palette.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it's a good. That's true. And of all the flicks, I'm glad I actually saw Spotlight in order to know what you're saying, and I agree. I mean, obviously they both also were back. I was shocked at when was the year? Like, it was right around 2001, right? Spotlight, and I forget if I thought it was that long ago or that short ago, but
right.
Either way, I kept remembering. I kept having little moments of like, wow, you know, like just, and I did remember how 9/11 just eclipsed everything. That was it, and then this thing just went away. And but there was stuff, and again, it's another good example because there was the tension, you know, seeing people sitting in a room listening to someone on a conference call, you know. Both films kind of had that ability to, like, you're seeing a character just sort of piece a couple of pieces together, and if they're right, it's horrible, you know. And you get to see that person's face, Ruffalo's face. Well, Ruffalo in both instances. Right, yeah. Oh, that's funny. You know, kind of, you know, figuring it out, you know. Yeah, they both have that in common. And that's just a great thing. It's a great, you know, All the President's Men. It kind of reminded me of that a little bit. That I thought this was very bold in Spotlight because they never even show us Richard Jenkins. Never see him even in a shadow, you know. Right. You just hear Deep Throat's voice, and that's it. But it reminded me of what it felt like as a younger person watching All the President's Men, and it was, you know, thrilling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I watched Spotlight with someone, and I was like, that's got to be Richard Jenkins' voice. It sounds like him. They're like, no, it's not. They would bill him in the credits, and I was like, there's no way it's not.
But it was him, right?
Yeah, it was. No, it was, but he's uncredited.
Is he really? So, yeah, I didn't know that. Wow.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's interesting. He was great, and what a reveal, you know, that whole thing of, like, you know, just like, no, I think it's closer to 6%, you know, and just when he starts dropping the numbers, and you're like, what the fuck?
Right?
This is really, it's way worse than we thought, and it just is. I mean, so my God, what a subject! It's crazy.
It echoes Zodiac so much for me that I was,
Yeah, there's a lot. I think I hear you, man. There are a lot of really cool parallels.
All right, so big thanks to Paul Schulze. Kind of, what are your final thoughts on the film, Eric? And what's your final takeaway from the film?
My final takeaway of the film was being very frustrated, which I understand is the point of this movie, but it doesn't make me any less frustrated. I
would consider it a success.
Yeah. So in that aspect, this movie did a really good job of fucking making me really frustrated. As far as like a true crime movie, like sort of establishing what's happening and presenting the characters and presenting it in that like a dramatized fashion as opposed to like a straight up like documentary, it's definitely one of the better ones that exists, if not probably the best one. I'm still not the biggest fan of this movie. Like, I'm not going to be going out and watching it, you know, like again, anytime soon. It'll probably be another 10 years before I watch it again. But I definitely liked it more now than I did 10 years ago. So I don't know. Yeah, it's one of those movies where I'm just like, I'm at a loss. It's good, but I don't like it, but it's good.
So if you had to give it a rating 1 out of 5 in best performance, what would you give it?
I would give it like a 3.5 out of 5, just because it suffers from being too long and too drawn out and jumps around too much to like keep the attention of like a normal human being. If you're really, really into like true crime and stuff, then it'll probably be closer to like a 4 or a 4.5. Best performance. Oh God. Who's the actor who plays Arthur Lee Allen?
John Carroll Lynch.
Yeah, John Carroll Lynch. He's definitely like the creepiest guy in the whole movie. And just the sequence alone when they interview him like at his job, just that scene alone creeped me out thoroughly. Yeah, he was definitely my favorite in the movie.
No pun intended, but it is kind of the linchpin of the film.
Oh, God damn it.
For me, I really like this film. Again, I kind of spoiled it at the beginning by saying that this is one of my favorite movies. I think it's really well cast. I think everybody who's cast in the film does something interesting, and they do something. They're utilized in a way that is to the best of their abilities. And David Fincher, I think, always does that with anybody that he casts in any of his films. He really gets the best out of everybody. I'm probably gonna go with like a 4.5 out of 5. The only issue I see with this movie is that it's not approachable for a lot of folks, and it's a hard sell because it is so long, because it is so dry in some spots. I mean, it's a dry film in a lot of the spots. So that's kind of a hard sell for someone who wants to see something that isn't a 3-hour investigative piece on Zodiac told in a narrative format as opposed to just a straightforward documentary.
Yeah.
And for me, best performance in the film, I have to go with John Carroll Lynch as well. He's really good, and that's not surprising because John Carroll Lynch is great. He's a really good character actor, so it's not terribly surprising that he's good in this film.
No, yeah, he's, for how little screen time he gets in comparison to all of the like other sort of like top billed actors, he definitely like made the movie for me.
He has that look to him that you believe that he could be the killer, but again, the way the movie presents it is that's the point, is that you're just not sure.
Yeah, is that you think every new person that they introduce is the killer. And so by the end of the movie, you're fairly sure that 4 different people are the Zodiac, and there isn't enough evidence to prove that any one of them are or are not the Zodiac, and that's kind of what's so frustrating about it.
Yet so damn successful.
Yeah, especially because it's like exactly how it went down, in real life.
And I think that that's really admirable on Fincher's part to be like, yeah, I'm not going to try to tell this story where there's a neat bow on the end. I mean, it kind of feels like there is. And then at the end, it's like, but DNA exonerated him.
Yeah. But they still I still walk away from that movie totally thinking that Arthur Lee Allen was the Zodiac,
Right.
I mean, I don't know. They even put in that little, postscript thing in there where, oh God, what is his name? Jake Gyllenhaal's character.
Robert Graysmith.
Yeah, where Robert Graysmith claims that he stopped getting those deep, heavy breathing phone calls in the middle of the night after Arthur Lee Allen died.
But to be fair, if someone accused me of the Zodiac killing, I probably would do the same thing.
Just call them and breathe heavily into the phone.
Just mess with them.
Yeah, that's true.
If someone was accusing me of being the Zodiac killer, I don't know. It's hard to tell. I've never been accused of murdering 5 people, but it probably does something. It probably does something to one's psyche.
Yeah. Well, and I mean that guy, like we've talked about before, was not a particularly good human being,
stable human
to begin with. Yeah.
What do you think the film has on Rotten Tomatoes?
Oh, I'm sure it's got something stupid high. I'm sure it's in the high 80s or low 90s.
89%, a quiet, dialogue-driven thriller that delivers with scene after scene of gut-wrenching anxiety. David Fincher also spends more time illustrating nuances of his characters and recreating the mood of the 70s than he does on gory details of murder.
Yeah, it's pretty accurate, yeah.
89% is pretty high.
Yeah, it's pretty high.
I was surprised that this film was not nominated for an Oscar the year that it came out.
Yeah, it's not a very approachable movie, for your average moviegoer, I think is the problem with it, because it's so long and because of the format that it's sort of presented in. Like I said, This movie completely changes if you are into true crime and into how the investigation has sort of gone. So actually, I think if this movie came out now, as opposed to 10 years ago, this movie would do way better. And it would probably be nominated for an Oscar, and it would probably maybe win a couple. But yeah, 10 years ago, that just wasn't the thing that it is now.
No, yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah.
Well, before I talk about the next Kulturecast, Eric, what's Wovoka been up to in the new year? Anything?
We're just recording right now. We're finishing up a new, really, really, really long song for a split that we're going to be releasing in a few months. I don't really have any information on that other than that for right now. But yeah, that's pretty much all we've been up to. I've been up to absolutely nothing because I threw my back out, but, I don't know. This whole like live tweeting the movie last night while like kind of getting wasted while doing it was kind of super fun for me. So I think I might start to do that once a week. If you want to see me be a complete dick to whatever movie I'm watching at the time, you can follow me on Twitter at Tycho Magnetics.
And I suggest you do because it's pretty good.
Yeah, I looked back on it this morning and I went, Jesus Christ. All like half of my tweets about this movie were about the fact that they keep mentioning the fucking handwriting.
The K was done with 2 strokes as opposed to 3.
I mentioned something about how I'm glad I type in all caps because of the similarities in the lowercase r's. Yeah.
You can follow me on Twitter at CultureStash and head on over to Kultureshock.com for movie reviews, video game reviews, and a little bit of wrestling for all you wrestling fans out there. The Kulturecast can be found at Kultureshocked.com/Kulturecast on Stitcher Radio, on Mixlr from time to time when we do this bad boy live, and over on iTunes and any podcast app, both iOS and Android.
I keep forgetting to go to Mixlr while we're recording this and create a different account and talk shit to you while I'm talking to you.
Shit. I swear to God, this asshole's just talking shit to me. Oh, God. Patreon.com/culture_shocked is where you can go to kick a couple dollars our way so we can keep the lights on. Wovoka.bandcamp.com is where you can go listen to Eric's band, him and his buddies, Cody, Rashid, and Troy, light it up with their rockin' butt rock music.
Woo!
I know you guys are pretty close to Hinder and the kind of music that you make.
Yeah, definitely. Like Hinder and Stained.
Jars of Clay, bro.
Yeah, dude, it's like Staineder. That's, yeah.
Yeah, check them out over at wovoka.bandcamp.com. We use the song Lament off of their album Sorrows as the intro, outro to the podcast, and we are always thankful to be working with these good guys over there at Wovoka. This Thursday, we're going to be talking about The Town That Dreaded Sundown from 2014. If you haven't seen it, it's a great film. You should check it out before my good friend and senior editor of the wrestling section of Kultureshock.com, Mark Hall, before we talk about that film on Thursday. Mr. Kniss, thank you so much for sitting down and talking Zodiac with me. I know it was a little bit of a drag for you watching the film, but it seems like you kept yourself entertained live tweeting it.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, it definitely, because it's such like it is kind of a slog of a movie, but it helped that live tweeting and getting kind of drunk, and the fact that I'm actually like into true crime and stuff like definitely helped this movie's case. So better experience last night than it was 10 years ago when I watched it.